Hi, I'm Courtney O'Neill Allen, host of GovExec TV. Welcome to HPod, our video podcast series with HP Inc. It's episode 5, Beyond Bureaucracy, the New Rules for Innovation in Government. If you missed episode 4 with Mike McGinn and Ed Roman from HP Federal, hit rewind. We explored the future of government workforce and how smarter tools will reshape where and how federal employees get things done. Today, we're taking a look at the policy enabling this work. As we talk about the future of the government workforce, we would be remiss not to mention the business of government as well as the focus on AI. As cost effectiveness and operational efficiency take center stage this year, the new administration's policy reform has promoted changes and overhauls to legislation that fuels the business of government. With change comes opportunity. Both government and industry have a moment to reset the playing field and foster collaboration and partnership, encouraging faster, more efficient, and innovative service delivery. Here to unpack all of this and more is Quentin Scholtz, the Director of Federal Government Affairs for HP, and Kelsey Kober, the Director of Procurement Policy for HP. Welcome, guys.
Great. Courtney, thank you so much for having us. Quentin Scholtz, Director of Federal Government Affairs with HP. I've been with HP for about 3 years now, and I lead all federal affairs activities that kind of interact with the business unit of the company. So anytime there's an issue with the federal government and HP, I kind of step in and help out.
We know who to call.
Exactly. Several years prior to HP, I spent 6 years working for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, where I worked on his technology issues, and then I worked for the Consumer Technology Association, who owns and produces the Consumer Electronics Show out in Las Vegas every year.
Love that. CES. That's a big show.
Exactly.
And Kelsey, how about you? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, happy to. So I've been at HP about 2 years, and I handle procurement policy issues on our government affairs team.
Okay.
So before I was at HP, I spent 5 years at the Information Technology Industry Council, where I led a lot of our procurement-focused policy work.
Mm-hmm.
My specialization was also looking at how we can use policy to drive better cybersecurity within government agencies. So when I was in that role, I worked on the ICT Supply Chain Risk Management Task Force with a lot of HP colleagues, even before I was on board here. And now in my current role, I get to advocate on behalf of a company that's passionate about cybersecurity and takes it really seriously. So it makes the job a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, very interesting backgrounds and touch points on everything policy. That being said, let's talk about what's happening in Congress. Quentin, I'll start.
I think the better question, Courtney, is what's not happening right now. There is so much. There's so much going on both in Congress and within the administration as well, too. We're currently in August recess at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Things are a little bit quieter, but when we started off this year, it was like a gunshot. It was finishing the fiscal year 25 funding bill with the CR. We're talking about current appropriations going on right now for fiscal year 26. They're currently working on the National Defense Authorization Act.
Mm-hmm.
There is some other legislation that passed as well, too, that targeted crypto, as well as the Take It Down Act. But there's also probably one of President Trump's biggest accomplishments so far was the One Big Beautiful Bill, which passed and was signed into law last month as well, too. So, and I'm sure we'll talk plenty about that.
Yeah.
Strong interplay between the government and kind of the corporate side as well, too.
For sure.
And of course, we also had President Trump issue a flurry of executive orders as well, too. And so we're doing our best to keep track of things.
Never heard of any of that stuff, you know? So with that being said, let's talk about some of the overhauls, right? What can you tell us about the FAR overhaul? And I'm sure you guys can break down these acronyms for us and our viewers, but what's HP's perspective on the changes that are being made to this?
Yeah, I love talking about this topic. So the FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation.
Thank you.
Basically the one-stop shop of all guidance for anybody looking to do business with the government.
Okay.
It was originally published in 1984, and the idea is each agency has their own guidance. Let's consolidate it all into one place and, in theory, make it simple.
Okay.
Then, of course, over the decades, it sprawled into anything but simple. You had laws passed by Congress that had to get integrated. Every president that came in wanted to make their own mark on procurement policy. So over the years, you just got a document that a lot of people think is bloated and sprawling.
Right.
And you have other agencies like DoD has the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement. So it's a sprawling kind of labyrinth of bureaucracy, I would say. And the idea is that, for a small business or, maybe you're an innovative company who's proven yourself in the commercial marketplace, it's daunting. you look at all the requirements and you're thinking, is this really worth the investment required?
Right.
So there's actually been quite a few attempts to reform the FAR. I think the most prominent one was probably the creation of what's called the Section 809 panel.
Okay.
Very glamorous name.
Yes.
But this is basically an attempt by Congress to gather a bunch of subject matter experts together and tell them, hey, fix this problem.
Got it.
So they came up with their recommendations in 2019.
Okay.
A lot of really good common sense reforms. I think the challenge was, and Quentin can speak to this, if you have to go through the legislative process, it's very complex. Politics get involved. Important things like this fall by the wayside. So what the Trump administration is doing right now is they're looking at, what can we actually do through the executive branch process, through the regulatory process, without need to get Congress involved. So they're looking at, they're going through the entire FAR. They're looking at every requirement that's not statutory, meaning not explicitly directed by Congress.
Got it.
And they're asking themselves two questions. First, is this necessary for national security? And two, does this drive government efficiency? If the answer is no for both, they strike it.
Okay.
So we've been tracking the deviations that are published, and they've crossed out a ton of stuff, which is amazing.
And to your point, probably really good for those small businesses that don't have the resources to translate all of these policies.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is really helpful. But what they're doing that we think is really great is everything they're striking, they're moving to a non-prescriptive buying guide. So that way the guidance is there for especially people within the government who need it, who need to know the procedures. But at the same time, you're reducing the amount of paperwork necessary for the contractor. So it's really the best of both worlds.
So with all of this reform and policy change happening in Congress, can you tell us a little bit more like what's going on with the acquisition reform process, and maybe anecdotally, are we making it great for once? Kelsey?
I definitely say we're making it great. So at the beginning of the year, Congress made two things clear. One, that government efficiency is a key priority. We've seen that reflected in multiple committees, multiple working groups. And two, procurement reform is the vehicle by which we drive government efficiency.
Got it.
So we saw two major pieces of legislation being introduced this year. The first was introduced by Senator Roger Wicker, the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee. It's called the Fostering Reform and Government Efficiency in Defense Act, or the Forged Act.
So short and easy to say.
Yeah, love those acronyms. So what this bill does, it's a large bill, but it also repeals over 100 statutory procurement requirements.
Oh, wow.
So, and the idea is it introduces a lot of reforms aimed at getting that innovative, non-traditional company into the defense space and breaking down barriers. Meanwhile, on the House side, the House Armed Services Committee introduced what's called the Streamlining Procurement for Effective Execution and Delivery Act.
Okay.
Another fun act.
Another one, yes.
So this is very similar to the Forged Act. What it does is it directs a lot of changes to DoD's acquisition process with the goal of internal operational efficiency to see how we can reduce the time lag between need and delivery. And what's really great is that this summer, Congress is fast-tracking these two bills. Both of them have been included in the base text for this year's NDA, National Defense Authorization Act, in both chambers.
Wonderful.
And Quentin can give some color to the process behind that.
Yeah, exactly. So with all these great ideas out there that we're talking about, right? You have the administration working with Congress. There needs to be some significant changes to the general procurement process. But how do you kind of get that through Congress?
Right.
There's only so many opportunities to get things through. Margins are pretty tight, both in the House and the Senate. And so they're looking at throwing them into these must-pass bills, which the National Defense Authorization Act is. It's a way to reform and, for Congress to set policy for how defense policy should work. And so right now, both the House and Senate, their other respective armed services committees have looked at these proposals, the NDAA on both sides. They're a little different, but they are working together. When we come back from recess, folks, the House will take up the House bill, and then the Senate will also take up their bill, and they'll eventually move to conference, which they'll try and think through some of the differences, and then eventually vote on the final package. But that's one way to kind of get these things in there. It should pass by the end of the year, and it should produce some good reforms, much needed reforms at that.
Awesome. So with that, you brought up DoD especially, and I know that a lot of people listening are like, okay, what's happening? Ears are perking up. The CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. The rules are set to be released or finalized this summer, right? How does HP feel about these governmental cybersecurity initiatives?
Yeah, so before we dive in, I'd like to provide some background.
Yeah.
So the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification is a DoD cybersecurity program for its defense industrial base.
Yes.
So it was established actually during the first Trump administration in 2019. It was basically DoD saying to its contractors, hey, we're giving you access to very privileged information. Show us how you're going to protect it.
Right.
So at HP, we love CMMC. We're actually looking at how we can adopt it for our entire enterprise, not just the components of the business that intersect directly with DoD. I think an overall goal of ours is looking at how to elevate cybersecurity as an evaluation factor in the government procurement process. We want it to be considered equal to cost, schedule, and performance.
Okay.
I think we envision a system where, maybe the contracting officer sets a bare minimum security requirement and then gives the bidder the opportunity to go above and beyond and see and show how they demonstrate superior cybersecurity. For instance, a company can talk about how we protect against quantum attacks,
Right.
how we look at our supply chain to make sure there's no tampered components or counterfeits, or how we integrate zero trust principles in our networks and endpoints, which is also a huge topic of discussion within DoD.
Yeah.
So I would say we really love what DoD is doing. We think they could do even more.
Okay. Quentin, anything to add that?
I think Kelsey sums it up. You are the expert on all things procurement, so I will let you handle that.
This is actually something we saw in the Senate bill, the Forged Act, that we really like.
Okay.
So one thing it does is it repeals what we think is a pretty outdated regulation that requires a government agency like DoD to only buy the lowest cost product when ordering off of the GSA multiple award schedules. This is a giant acquisition program. I believe they did $65 billion through this program in 2023. So it's a big deal for commercial companies like HP.
Yeah.
So in this reform, the contracting officer doesn't just have to buy lowest price. They can use what's called a best value standard. And they can use evaluation factors like cybersecurity. This is something that we've always emphasized to policymakers.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have to buy the lowest priced item. It doesn't have basic security features.
Yeah.
Then you get hacked. Now you have to look at, do I have to pay ransomware or risk it taking my systems offline? Was it really cheaper in the long run? We would argue no.
Right. The cost on the other side is way greater.
So this is a way that Congress can help DoD by giving it the authorities it needs to actually improve cybersecurity and really act according to its mission. So we were really happy to see that.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Lots to talk about.
Yeah, lots of out there. So, we're all tracking this bill, right? But what does that mean for the work that you all do in federal government?
Yeah, absolutely. So One Big Beautiful Bill was signed into law last month in July by President Trump. A lot of it included some of his campaign promises that he ran on about the no tax on tips, and several other important issues. We all kind of see it as a general tax bill, something that they worked on making permanent our individual rates, but there was also a whole lot of corporate provisions in there too, as well as almost a whole nother government funding piece, basically a supplemental package as well. Okay. So from an HP perspective, we were acutely engaged in this process from the get-go. If they're moving a tax bill, we have to make sure that we're looking at kind of where these numbers are going to line, what the draft process looks like, because any change in our tax structure really affects our ability to maintain competitiveness in the market. Make sure federal agencies, departments, even commercial and private sector individuals are able to get their products at an affordable price range because we do operate in such a competitive market. One thing we looked a lot at was the maintain the corporate rate within the bill. We also looked at the immediate expensing. R&D allows us to reinvest in the company, develop new products. But the other side of it too, which was pretty fascinating, as I alluded to also, was that there was a lot of spending in the bill as well. A lot of varying policy priorities too. A lot of that money going to the Pentagon, Department of Homeland Security, some really neat stuff in the additive manufacturing space. So we do 3D printers, right? We can make all sorts of things in there, from submarine parts to prosthetics for folks to wear that are customizable. Some really cool, innovative tech. And there's a lot of money going to the Pentagon, to other folks as well too, to really streamline their operations, improve IT modernization, an emphasis on artificial intelligence, which everybody's been talking about lately.
Another thing I haven't heard about.
Exactly. And for these other programs too, and drones was another massive pot of money in there too. So we're still kind of combing through the bill. We know the top line, obviously,
but big, right?
It's massive. It's and from a tax perspective too, it was certainly good for us. Something else that we're also watching too is that there's talks of another potential reconciliation package coming down in the fall. So I don't think
they haven't done enough this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys.
Exactly. So that's something else we're keeping an eye on too to see what that looks like too. But never a dull moment on DC. So
2025.
Yeah, exactly.
A year to remember.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the big topic, AI.
Yes.
And we talked about earlier innovation and how that impacts the business of not only government, but IT or tech, what you guys are doing. So, that bill was released, and for clarity, it's the AI Action Plan, another breakdown of acronyms here. So what has been HP's reaction to that initiative? And then how do you see your company fitting into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, why does HP care about AI?
For sure.
So we recently introduced our AI PC,
Okay.
which is a way for developers for AI models to do their work, what we call on the edge. So have it stored locally instead of in the cloud. There's various benefits to this. There's improved latency. You can be right by the work. You don't have to rely on outsourcing it or having sit in a data center. There's security and privacy benefits as well. So we're really excited to, a lot of momentum on that. So we're really excited to see the attention that the Trump administration is giving to this topic. So the AI Action Plan was introduced a couple of weeks ago. One thing we're really impressed by was how quickly they got this done and the extent to which they worked with industry on this. I read that they had published over 10,000. Read over 10,000 comments from industry. So we are, it's amazing that they were willing to work with us so closely.
That's awesome.
So what stuck out to me was the emphasis on security. I think there's been a growing acknowledgement that while AI tools can help in the cyber fight, they also create a whole new attack vector by themselves.
Yes.
So what the action plan emphasizes is that AI should be secure by design, meaning security should be integrated directly into the models, not something that's added on.
An afterthought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this aligns pretty well with HP's philosophy.
Okay.
So last year we signed the U.S. Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency's Secure by Design pledge, just signaling our desire to work with the government in that fight. And that's something we hope to do in the AI space, whether that's creating a new standard or internal working groups, information sharing groups. So we think that industry can all work together. I think in terms of security, it's one of the areas where a rising tide lifts all boats. And we really welcome competition in the security space because it just makes us better.
Wonderful. Quentin, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, with this action plan, it's basically a directive too, right? For agencies to start thinking about how they're going to incorporate and utilize artificial intelligence. We certainly have a role to play on that too with our AI PC. Our AI at the edge as well too, which again just like protects data, allows for a more secure environment to kind of handle sensitive information, right? Medical records, trade secrets, intellectual property, anything you don't really feel comfortable sharing with a large cloud infrastructure, right? But with that directive to the departments and agencies, there's also going to be a significant Capitol Hill and congressional play along with this, right? Agencies are only able to do so much, but there needs to be the force of law behind that as well, too. And so it's a very strong signal to those in the Energy and Commerce Committee on the House side, also on the Senate Commerce Committee on the Senate side, as well as other committees, right? AI touches every aspect of our lives, right? Absolutely. So there's going to need to be work done coming out of the Hill. I know things, politics are very high, tension's very high at the moment too, but there does, exactly, right? But there does seem to be a general willingness from both sides of the aisle to come together and kind of address this.
For sure.
Provide some certainty, not only for us as a corporate environment, but also for users of artificial intelligence as well too. Exactly. So innovating's important, but also just having the trust of the users as well too is important as well too. And so we'll see what happens in the next few weeks or months, but I'm optimistic about this space though. I mean, it is truly revolutionary. People on the Hill, members of Congress, they're able to interact with it on a daily basis. They're starting to understand it, and they're hearing from folks back home too about a need to kind of at least just be able to better understand it and create a good legal framework.
How do we make use of this technology but do it responsibly?
Exactly.
And the government really should be at the forefront of that work, especially America, the world's leader in this.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And we want to keep that advantage globally as well. So
the edge piece is a really fascinating point too, which Kelsey talked about too. I mean, just to really kind of drive this home, we're also used to some of the other more popular AI chatbots out there as well too. HP just really plays in a very unique space where we're able to do a lot of that AI computation at the local level, which we call the edge, which Kelsey mentioned too. And so, from the security perspective, which HP obviously always cares about, to also the privacy angle too. I mean, if you want to utilize AI for patient data, financial data, trade secrets, a lot of that can be done on the device without sharing it into a cloud structure, right?
Yeah.
So we think there's really good opportunity for HP and for the edge, other edge providers to really play here, and we're having those conversations with policymakers right now.
So Quentin, as we talk about that one big beautiful bill, you mentioned a lot of movement with the finances, the money happening and shuffling in Congress, appropriations. Sure. What are you seeing or tracking for FY 2026?
Absolutely. So the appropriations committees in Congress are moving very quickly on what they think the fiscal year 26 government funding packages should look like. As you know, we are quickly coming up to the end of fiscal year 25. Earlier this year, they passed the funding bill, which got us through the fiscal year 25, but now we're almost at the end of it, right? We still do not yet have one of the 12 appropriations bills signed into law and passed.
Okay.
House and Senate are still discussing what their respective bills look like. There's been some significant progress lately, but I think the larger question is, where are things going, and what is September 30th going to look like, right? As we've done this dance a few times. So I think there's a general willingness from folks to want to pass the full year funding bill. It just depends on if folks are able to kind of get past some of the differences that they have in whether it's the defense bill or the Milcon bill, or even something like the agriculture bill too. The One Big Beautiful Bill, as I mentioned earlier, has that supplemental funding in it, right? As I said, it touches a lot of different departments, a lot of different agencies. So that took some of the pressure off, but doesn't necessarily fully fund these departments and agencies. So we're going to be looking at where things are going. I guarantee you that once members come back from their recess at the beginning of September, they're going to hit the ground running very quickly on this. Committees obviously understand the pressure and the deadlines that they're working with.
For sure.
There's a lot of stress naturally in the process too.
Yep.
But we'll have to see where Republicans and Democrats align, and also where the administration is too. But no predictions right now. If I had a magic ball or a crystal ball determine out where things will go, I probably wouldn't be here right now. But I pretty much know that it'll be a wild time in September.
Well, any final thoughts before we close, guys?
Kelsey?
We're just really happy about what we're seeing in Congress. I think if you go through the text of all the bills that are being introduced, the one common theme is Congress wants to treat DoD like just another commercial customer for these major technology companies, and not like, this one foreign entity where there's a bunch of special requirements. It's really about tearing down the hurdles to the government and making a level playing field for all. So we're really happy with the momentum so far, and we're really excited to keep having these conversations.
For sure.
Absolutely. And change is ever present in D.C. right now, too. So as we started the conversation about the flurry of activity coming out of both the administration and also Capitol Hill, too, I think we're going to continue to see this for the foreseeable future, too. So it's important that we all stay nimble, that we all engage with folks, policymakers, but also government employees, too, kind of see how they're interacting with our products, how we can help them, and how the law can change to make everybody a little bit more efficient and happier. So
for sure, building that frontier between government and industry is so important. All right, well, that is a wrap for episode 5. Thanks again to Quentin, and Kelsey for joining us, helping us keep track of all the changes in public policy at the federal level and understand these changes and what they actually mean for you. For our listeners and viewers, thank you again for tuning in. For GovExec TV, I'm Courtney O'Neill Allen, and we'll see you next time on HPod. To learn more about technology solutions for federal, state, and local government agencies, or to speak to a government expert, scan this QR code now.